The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the podcast belong solely to the hosts and not the host's past, present, or future employers. Hey everybody, it's Brian from Breaking Down Security this week. We're doing things a little differently from now on. I would say that this is going to be one of the biggest changes that, if you've been listening, if you're a long-time listener, first, thank you for listening. And I hope you'll help us out with this. We're doing a little experiment, and I have been trying to work out ways to expand our audience, because if I can pull the curtain back a little bit, our downloads and our audience, I think, has gotten a little flat, not just because of the pandemic, but because, it's an audio podcast, so you can only do so much with it, and to be fair, we've been doing the same thing for the last 8, almost 9 years now, and I felt like we needed to shake things up. So starting the 27th of February, I myself specifically have been doing a number of streams on Twitch. You can follow us on twitch.tv/breaksec. I am doing a month starting in March of 2022. If you're listening to this after March 2022, we just have a regular schedule or of something. Anyway, trying to build a new audience and expand the audience that we have, and a couple of episodes. If you watch the first episode that I've ever done, if you can catch it before it's been archived, it was trash. I will say that. But ideally, what I'm doing is spending an hour and a half going through news or topics that people want to talk about in our Twitch chat. We're also setting up a new Discord for this. We're going all out because there's a lot of restrictions that the Slack has, and it doesn't integrate well with, I would say, newer technologies like Twitch or what have you. So what we're doing is we are trying to revamp the community in some ways. We will keep the Slack because there are people that are like, oh, I don't like Discord. Too much junk going on with it. It's fair cop. If you want to continue using the Slack, we will continue using the Slack. But we will have a Discord. We have roles management. We have code of conduct. Some of our moderators from Slack will also come and join us on Discord. We'll also be doing a lot of extra things on there. We're going to plan on doing like game nights. Twitch opens up a whole new level of interaction for us. We're going to be doing games like Backdoors and Breaches was suggested. We'll be doing some, it'll be more interactive. So I've been actually doing some Try Hack Me courses. So we go through modules on, currently me and my mentee will be going through some modules on junior pen testing. So the last couple days here, I've been doing modules on authentication bypasses and indirect object references and items like that. And if you're interested in doing those things, come in and join us. We've got a ton of stuff. We might be doing Under the Wire. We might be doing some regex golf. And we're going to be taking tons of input from people. If you have a Twitch account, we would love for you to use your and a Prime account. If you have a Twitch and a Prime account, we would love to have your subscription so that we can further build our audience. And it looks good for us. And the more people we get, the more things that can happen for us, like events and different things. Different boosts to our Discord and what have you. So. We're looking for your help. If you find and have continued to find interest in our podcast over the years, I'd like to thank all of our Patreon donors. We're still trying to work out what we're going to be doing for our Patreon folks. Been working with some of our longtime members like NXVL and Shecky and them to get incentives for our Patreon supporters. So we're working on secret channels inside of our Discord, access to events that only our Patreons would have access to. Ooh, that's a good one. I should write that down. I just thought of that one as I was off the top of my head. Patreon only events. That would be a good one. One sec. Sorry, it's something I've been doing, trying to keep track of stuff. So Patreon events, cool. Anyway, but yeah, come check us out, twitch.tv/breaksec. Follow, subscribe, give us some support if you want to do it that way. We do appreciate it. And, I already have almost 20 hours of content on there. And what you're hearing here is literally the first BreakSec show we did with Mr. Betcher and myself and Shannon Noonan and Tracy Cameron. Oh, gods. Stacey Cameron, I'm sorry. On some GRC and compliance items. They work for a consultancy that helps out with that, and helping organizations with things like automation. What should you automate? What shouldn't you automate? So what you're going to hear is pretty much the first almost hour. I mean, we did a 2-hour show. I mean, it's super easy to go like long amounts of time on Twitch, which is crazy. So we did a 2-hour show. So this one's about 45 minutes. And then I've got next week's, which is going to be about another 45 to 50 minutes or longer. And come and join us. A lot of great people already in our chat. Also, we did on the 5th of March Joe Gray from the Ascension, and he's been on our show a few times. We also did a conference called Sunflower Con, and if you're asking where Sunflower Con came from, that is the national flower of Ukraine. And what we did was we did a 5-hour pop-up conference on our Twitch here, where we had a bunch of speakers, including Marina Krotofil, who is a Ukrainian living in Switzerland, talking about all of the bad stuff that's going on and how the relations between Russia and Ukraine. It's very much a departure from what you normally would hear on BreakSec, but it was so important because we donated all of the money from charity to Nova Ukraine, which is a nonprofit seeking to provide humanitarian relief to citizens of Ukraine. So we generated several $1,000s there. We had a panel with Ray Redacted, Bryson Bort, Malware Jake, Hacks for Pancakes, Alyssa Miller, and a bunch of folks. And we even had some OSINT discussions about how to build your own OSINT tools in Python. So I ask humbly that you go and check that out. If it's not on our Twitch, it will be permanently moored on our YouTube channel, which I will put a link in our show notes if you want to check out the YouTube channel. I'm pretty much archiving everything after 24 hours to the YouTube channel because of Sunflower Con. We became what is called an affiliate. So we get remuneration from people who decide they want to give us subscriptions or what have you as a way of thank you. So we actually get some profit sharing and from Twitch. So if you are interested in checking out the talks and the speakers we gave at SunflowerCon, go check that out. Okay? Well, I'm going to stop talking. The intro for the show on Twitch was a little rough, and I do apologize for my audio because it only appears to be my audio. You will hear some crackling on my audio. I believe after last weekend, I did fix this. I think there was a problem with the different volume limiters. So sorry to be so chatty, but I'm really excited about this, as you can probably tell. So I hope you'll share the excitement with me and check out our show on Twitch. So have a great week. Hello, everybody. Hey, audio podcast listeners. Do not adjust your earballs. This is Brian and Mr. Betcher for Breaking Down Security. It's fun. It's fun, isn't it? So what you're not seeing if you're normal audio podcast listeners, this is our first podcast where we're actually Twitch streaming. So for those of you who are listening to us on audio, you can follow us at twitch.tv/breaksec. And we have, I have been twitching. I've been twitching? Twitch streaming.
I don't want to see that.
nobody, nobody wants to see the twitching. Yeah, no. So one thing Twitch tells you is you've got to make your hours up so that you can do things and have special events and get badges and things. And so starting last Sunday, so this is like the first full week of Twitch streaming. So I've been trying to do at least an hour a day, talking about news or specific topics or anything like that. So this is the first podcast that is our one and only deliverable that's been around for the last 8 years. And, what's that?
8? Wow.
Yeah. 2014 to 2022. Wait, I don't math good. Wait. No, you got to count your zero. You've got to count your zero. So you got to start at zero. So 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, ninth year. Okay. 9 years. We're in our 9th year. So
been worse than
yeah. Anyway, so I've introduced our 2 guests this week to the Twitch stream, so I'm going to reintroduce them again. I'm going to work on the workflow on how we're going to do all this, but I'd like to welcome Stacey Cameron and Shannon Noonan to the show.
Well, thank you for welcoming us here. We're glad you invited us and glad to be here.
Very cool. Yeah, seriously, it's it was I didn't know exactly how I was going to go through all of this, so it's a bit of a new experience. So, how do we? I'll start with Stacey. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you, in working for your consultancy that you're at, and how you got into information security and what you're doing?
Okay, yeah, that's a loaded question because I've been around for just a little bit, but I will give you the Cliff Notes version.
Awesome.
But yeah, so my background is in computer science. So I started off even before I went to college as a programmer. And then sort of translating that, by the time I graduated college, decided to no longer program and went more into IT. But ended up working with a lot of the business side and the programmers. Just because I had that knowledge. So it's very easy to communicate with that. And then probably I would say sometime around 2006 or so, the compliance regulations within the federal government, at that time I was supporting the Navy. They started really focusing on the security requirements. And a lot of places didn't understand how to do them or implement them, myself included, because I didn't know what they were talking about at the time. Mm-hmm. But just a little bit of research and just sort of really loving the security aspects of it, but having that background of being that system admin, that integration tester, that computer scientist, having that technical background to combine with applying the security standards was really helpful and really communicating so people could do it. So I just started finding a love for the security part of it. And then I went to private sector and then back to the government, and then back to private sector. And then now Shannon and I own QoS Consulting Solutions. So it's just sort of morphed into really focusing on cybersecurity. We've been here through the transition of, you all remember back in the late 90s or what have you, when there weren't that many policies and laws against certain cyber activities. But now that there's a lot more improvement around that. And then really people hammering down on compliance regulations. So some of the regulations we support are implemented by laws. And those laws, the laws are issued, but there's really, usually when they come out, you get a few years to comply. And then eventually the fines start kicking in. So when the fines start kicking in, that's when the people start caring. So that's sort of where we come in to make sure and help our clients or what have you. So I really enjoy it. It's interesting because compliance is, often seen as a dirty word, but it's a dirty word I enjoy to use and try to help our clients with. So.
Okay. Shannon, how about yourself?
I am from the other end of the spectrum. I didn't even know how to turn a computer on at one point. I came from an accounting background where in 2005, I was wrapping up school with my undergrad and master's degree, and Enron had blown up the world, and we are now driving into the Sarbanes-Oxley world. So I was basically trained to come out of college and audit and work on Sarbanes-Oxley. So that's where I started in the world. Eventually rolled into what they call internal audit. And slowly but surely people said, oh, she's smart. and she knows how to turn the power button on a computer. Let's go introduce her to mainframes, which was a horrifying experience. Yep. And then I got introduced to the Unix box. So we just kept going down the rabbit hole of being introduced more and more technical aspects of the business versus just the operational side. And slowly but surely, I became a compliance security personnel. I also ran, and this is how I met Stacey, I ran a compliance department at a cybersecurity company. So for quite some time, we were the best of friends. And on my maternity leave, Stacey decided to call me and say, I really want to start a company. And I just said, all right, let's do this. Let's do it. I'm in. One of the best decisions she ever made by including me to be her partner.
Absolutely.
Just love what we do. Like Stacey said, compliance is a dirty word, but we prove to people it's not about compliance. It's actually a revenue generating tool. It's all about getting your organization secure, and it helps drive business if you have a secure environment and you can prove it. So we're there to show the other end of it, not just to force people to get things done because the laws tell you to do it. So and we make it fun.
Very cool. Okay. So I forget if in the email it said you might have some slides. Did we have no slides? Okay, good. That's fine. We did some sharing during the conference, so it looked okay. So for those of you who are listening to the audio podcast, this is like the second time that we've actually had real people on the Zoom. So we're going to get better at this. If you're watching the stream, thank you for your patience. One of the things that, so the reason I met Shannon is because we had a mutual friend who, one reached out to me and said, hey, you should talk to this lady, Shannon. She might help you with your problem. And I replied to him, I was like, what problem do I have? And he's like, oh, about that thing. And I was like, what thing? You're going to have to help, bro. And he's like, no, you know the thing. And I was like, okay. So I got on a call with Shannon. I said, hey, he said you could help me with the thing. And she said, I don't know what he's talking about. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. We had a 30-minute meeting and we didn't even, scheduled, and we didn't even know what we were talking about. So, but the great thing was, what came out of that is kind of what we're going to be discussing here, which is talking about automation and finding ways that it can be done smartly. We've got some news articles that I tend to pull up, which I will post in the chat for those of you watching the stream, so you can help follow along. But we also have some other items of interest, and we'll just, kind of vamp a little bit, and hopefully everybody can learn something. And if you have any questions in the stream, please feel free to do so, and we'll pass those questions along. So I'll start with Shannon because, it was the question that heard around the world. Are companies not automating enough? This is probably a big question here, but what do they appear to be lacking in terms of for automation?
So that's a loaded question, quite a bit, depending on the organization, right? I find that larger organizations that have been around for quite some time are less likely to automate, and they have the most money to do it. And it's because they get set in their ways, they get into a routine, and it's hard to change those routines. It's hard to change upper management's opinion. They want to see something a certain way, and they don't know how to see it a different way, right? You need probably a change in staff to get the changes. Startups, a lot of times, because they are on lean teams, they have to find the most effective and efficient way to get things done. They don't have the time to worry about manual processes or any type of manual procedures, right? Because they may have one person on the security team and two people on the IT team, and they have a multi-million-dollar business to support, which, as we all know, is not sufficient in any means in this world. So how do they do it? They figure out how to automate. They figure out how to streamline. And then as they're going down these roads of compliance, they have to know how to do these things, or they become a sinking ship that just gets more and more requirements and they don't know how to handle it. So what organizations automating, not as effective as they should be. But it's also because they don't have the ability to do it, they don't have the knowledge, or they don't have the want.
Okay. Stacey, same question. Do you have any thoughts or anything to add to that? Any insights?
I mean, yeah. So, are they automating? Some they are. Some are not. What are they automating is another question. Have they done it correctly? A lot of from a compliance standpoint, it's all about understanding your boundary and what's in scope and making sure your automation covers everything. Because what happens is in the benefit of working, when you're working with advisors and auditors or advisors who have been auditors, is we'll look at things from an audit perspective, right? So if you're doing something, is it all inclusive of your entire scope of your entire boundary? Because you want to be able to say, hey, we're doing this. Yeah, but what about, 75% of your environment that you're not doing this with? You still have to account for that. So you don't want to semi-automate something. You want to make sure if you're doing automation that you're scoping your entire environment. So sometimes you'll see people start working in automation there, and then there's others that just don't really understand or understand what they're doing, or viewing compliance as more of a checkbox. So automation can help. Automation, we always recommend that you should use automation, because what happens is you get these compliance requirements. They're going to change periodically, whether it's every couple of years, depending on the standards that you're working with. And it's going to add on, it's going to tack time onto your resources, right? So typically you have your resource, you have engineering resources, you have operational resources, you have some of your business resources. You have positions that are already in place, and these people are already overtaxed with what they're doing, right? So now you have these compliance requirements, and they may not be done efficiently or optimally because you're lacking automation. So your question is, are we seeing it? I'm starting to see it a little bit more. But it would benefit organizations if they would really embrace it, and then really understand. They just don't really understand areas that they can embrace it, and they're just going with it.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. The term automation. When I heard the term automation, people were using it, and I thought it was just, okay, this is just some new term that people are throwing around, right? It's just what they're doing, but they're throwing a new word at it. So the first time I had to actually learn what the word automation was in an interview. I was interviewing, and they said, well, have you done automation? And I'm like, so what is automation? And they told me what it was, all right, in their words. And I thought, well, that's just programming. I've been doing programming for 15 years, right? It's just another word for programming, right? So I remember when I was a kid, they had these books where it was called Choose Your Own Adventure. You would read some of the book, right? And then you as the reader get to make a decision, right? You get to either go, I don't know, open the box or give it to a friend or whatever, right? So then you would skip on to page 200 or whatever if you chose one, and 100 and something if you chose the other, right? I never really liked those books because they were so short, right? So you spend $1.50 or $2 on this book, and you only read like for maybe 20 minutes or something like that. So, but the idea was that you get to make these decisions throughout the book. And so that's kind of the way I see sort of automation in that sense, except that the decisions that you make are very small. So the book is read for you, and then you get to make those little decisions here and there to have the program, the program, the automation sequence, do those tasks for you in between. All right. So am I way off base? And also, how do you automate GRC? That's crazy.
I'll tell everyone, no, you're not way off base. And now they've sort of automated those books now, right? So you'll see them on YouTube or streaming services. So now you have those options, right? But
you used to roll the dice to figure out what the thing is, and now in board games or whatnot, and now you have all the games online, right? So all the dice, all the math is done for you, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. I always tell people, and I'll just start before Shannon jumps in, but you're never going to be able to fully automate compliance. And I like to put that out there because unfortunately, I've seen a lot of vendors market as such. And a lot of times it's just marketing is not in touch with engineering. And they'll market the product. And Shannon and I have experienced firsthand with helping clients calm down their customers who were sold something that was told them they would be 100% compliant. Just do this and you're done. But a product can't do that for you. A service and products can, but just a single product can't do that for you. So it's one of the things that I warn people to caution you when you're talking about automation. And I really like that you brought up the fact, what does that mean? Are we just talking from a programmatic standpoint? And with your technical controls, absolutely. Those are essentially whether you're using GRC tools, whether you're using other security tools to help you, whether you're using a combination of GRC and security tools so you can automate the GRC process as well as your technical requirements. So there's a lot that goes into it from that standpoint. But like you're saying, and especially if you think from a programming standpoint, if repeatable actions can be automated, right? So you can program something. I always joke with a friend of mine who does automated penetration testing. He essentially just programmed himself. He's like, I was doing this and now I just wrote code to do it for me. So you can take that from the compliance standpoint when you're talking about automation, but you want to be very specific about when you have compliance, it's policies and procedures as well, so it has that people component. So some of those people elements where you're having, where you need to do something based on metrics, or you need to do something on reports, or you have to train others, or you have to worry about the end user. So there's a level, there's a mixed bag, as you can say, of automation, as well as process, and you actually have to sort of boots on the ground and actually get in there and do a little bit of dirty work. But Shannon, I know you have a lot to say on this part.
Depending on what the topic is, yes. And I'm not the technical person here. I've never programmed. I don't ever want to program because I would probably program something awful, to be honest with you, and it would blow up. It's not my sweet spot, but understanding business process and repeating a process, right? It's what Six Sigma is. It's what all of these compliance initiatives are teaching you how to streamline and do the same thing over and over again versus trying to recreate the wheel 400 different ways, right? So why are we not able to automate some of those a little bit more, right? We also see in identity management is one of probably the best ones. It's my favorite, right? They had all of this around access where they centralized it. Active Directory managed everything, and then everything went to a SaaS solution. And they didn't have the ability to centralize the way access was managed. Well, now you can't just turn off a switch to turn off access in every single system. So now you're back to having to go into every single system to turn it off again. Well, how do you centralize that and automate it? Why are we not figuring out that solution? And there are some solutions out there that do it, but it's expensive, or they don't know how to configure it, or because it's all different systems, no one knows how, no one wants to create that interface or pay for an interface tool that centralizes it and be able to turn it off. So it doesn't mean it's not possible. It may be more complicated. Change management, which I'm guessing we'll probably get a little bit more, is my sweet spot. Why are we not automating some of the change management controls? On the audit side, I'm not talking about on the technical side of testing and deploying and migrating changes into the production, right? I'm talking about the audit side. Why is that not being done more of? And that's because people think it's being done and it's not. They think that some of these tools that are out there, and not saying that they're not there, like a Jira and ServiceNow, are automating it, and it's not. It's a glorified checklist and getting yourself out of an email and putting it into a system to observe it and have the evidence formulated. So what is the next stages for that? And that's one of my big pieces of why can we not do this? And I ask the question because I'm sitting here watching it and putting manual processes in place every single day in large organizations.
So we're talking about automating all the things. Is there a sweet spot to where it's like yes, you do this enough that you should automate it, or you're doing this once a year. Is automation really necessary? Because the one thing I'm thinking about is if you do this once a year, maybe things have changed in that year where your automation may break, or is there a sweet spot like a weekly report? Yes, I could definitely see something like that where you're constantly updating the dashboard or whatever. But if it's like, I mean, is there a good sweet spot here in terms of when you should automate something versus, it's going to take us 10 hours and it's a manual process, but, it's not worth automating, or, I have to do this 8 times a week or something like that. I mean, is there a sweet spot there where you say, hey, this should be automated, or, hey, you probably could get a pass?
And Stacey, you know the control better than I do on the PCI front, but there are alerts that are required on the PCI side. And I'm going to ask you to jump in here, Stacey, that why are we not automating them? It's required daily, every single day. And you will be shocked at how many people do it manually. And I think you know which one I'm talking about. I always forget that control, which required every single day for PCI.
Audit log reviews for your security logs. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yeah, Brian, so one of the things, I guess what you mentioned as far as that sweet spot, yeah, so there are things that happen annually, and security is not just, making sure you're secure, making sure you're compliant, but when you're looking at compliance, when you're looking at security, you want to take it in financial impact, return on investments as well. So are you going to spend an exorbitant amount of money on a solution for something that only happens once a year? I would advise you not to. I'm pretty sure your CFO would probably tell you no as well. Unless there's I guess there's an outlier for a good use case, right? So, but it's all about, it comes down to the ROI. But yeah, so is there that sweet spot? One of the things, and I don't see that often, is I've seen some organizations actually track that pretty much what their resource load for personnel as well, not just for technologies. So once that gets to that sweet spot, they come up with their own number of saying, okay, we have this percentage of our resources that are pretty much overutilized at maybe 110, 120 percent or whatever their threshold is. When you start looking at that, then you need to start really looking at your process improvements and really optimize what's going on. Sometimes you can take it from, there's different methods of doing it from a business standpoint. But if you really want to look at it, it's all about your resources, right? Do your resources know how to do it? One, right? So do you have that intellectual capability, depending on what's required to do that? That's the thing that we run into often is it's audit time and you thought you were doing something, you've been doing it incorrect just because you didn't know, of pure ignorance. And it's unfortunate. So those types of things you want to look at. And of course you want to look at if there's just not enough people or time in a day to do certain things, you want to leverage automation. And it also makes your employees happy. So if you want to, increase employee morale, help get a machine to not put them out of a job, but help them with their job.
Right. Okay. All right. So we had a few articles. One of the things that I had mentioned before we actually started, broadcasting was I had done a story this week about SOC analysts, and the whole idea, being that 70%, and I'll have to go find the article, but they said 70% of SOC analysts, and this is not necessarily a compliance thing, but it's more of an operational thing. But 70% of them are burnt out and are looking to move elsewhere. And they cited the main reason was that there were too many things that were manual and not automated, and they weren't embracing automation, and they were looking for another job. And I had to question. I questioned it during the stream. I was like, they are going to another company potentially, and they think it's going to be better there. They're y'all wow, y'all are like twins or something with your heads shaking. But they assume that they're going to go to this other place and it's going to be better and it's going to be all automated and they're going to have these things. But the other thing they cited was having to go to meetings, writing reports based on not incidents but like alerts or what have you. Mr. Betcher, I'll come to you in a second with the reports and things. But one of the things I mentioned there was SOC analysts need to find ways to automate these things, because every time that they're not, every time they're manually generating a report or they have to go to a meeting, the bad guys don't have to go to those meetings or those reports. So, Mr. Betcher, you come from an incident response world. You do a lot of monitoring and stuff. What kind of level of automation does your organization have, or are you still doing things manually you wish you could automate?
Well, there's no shortage of things that you could automate, right? It just depends on how much time and effort you spend on them. So I think for the last, I don't know, has it been 9 years since we've been doing this podcast?
I said 8, but yeah, it could be 9.
It's around 9, something like that. So
1,200.
We've been teaching this from the very beginning, is that, you need to find how to make your job very easy, right? So that it's very hard at first, but you get it down to a process, and automation could be that process, right? Programmatically do your job, fire yourself, all right? So that you can move up to higher level things. Figure out what will take figure out a way so that somebody like a new hire right out of high school or college could do your job, the job you did 6 months ago, right? That it took almost a genius to figure out, right? And automate your job, fire your former self and move up. So that's where automation comes in. That's where programming comes in. My very first job, I built a lot of programs to automate some of the tasks that I did, like database takeovers. It wasn't fully automatic, but it presented you with the things that it took 10, 15 minutes to do in just seconds. And then you would make the decision, click the button, choose your own adventure, right? Do I fail over or do I not? Is it safe? Maybe I have to wait 10 seconds, And so, yeah, that automation, the stuff that we did 15 years ago, the thing that I would want to say to someone who wants to quit their job because it's monotonous, you need to figure out how to not make your job monotonous, how to contribute to the team, to the company, and to yourself, to automate those tasks, right? Learn how to program in Python. And if you already know how, figure out how to automate some of the tasks with that programming knowledge that you have, right? And make your job a lot easier. I remember there was this one, I heard a story about this one programmer who, he was doing an amazing job doing the work of maybe 50 different developers. Turns out he had hired some developers to do his job. It was, I don't know if it was illegal, but it was against company policy to do that. But he found cheaper labor in another country. And he would kind of manage their work and call it his own work. Well, it kind of was his own work. He was just managing a team outside the company to do his job, right? And so they had to fire him. But I think if it was okay to do that, maybe he could have talked to his management and said, hey, this is what I want to do. I think I can help out the company by outsourcing some of this easier programming stuff to people who are, we can pay less than my salary and distribute that work and get a lot more done. And then I would kind of manage the overall project. So it's that type of pseudo automation that you should be looking for, things to make your time on the job more effective. And then, do the job that's one step above you, right? Start doing that job and that way you'd be in line for a promotion. It would be a no-brainer. Why should I promote you to this other job? Well, because I'm already doing it.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That's those are. Yeah. I mean, I actually posted the link to the guy outsourcing his own job to China and surfs the web. That was back in 2013.
Fast.
That's an NPR article. I Googled work with the best of them. So, Stacey, we yesterday during Sunflower Con, one of the talks that we had was by a person by the name, he goes by the Twitter handle of Human Decoded, and he was building an OSINT tool in Python because he wanted to be able to scrape a site, in this case archive.org, to find all of the tweets in his own account that had been deleted by himself. So it allowed him to compare what was in archive.org versus his own timeline to see what happened. If he had done that manually, it would have taken him a magnitude of amount of time. So, you mentioned earlier you had friends who are doing, pen testing. They automated the job. It's the monotony that they're getting rid of, and it gives them greater output because they're spending 2 weeks, on a pen test or something. So all these tools they have is just really automating processes. So security people, I would say us security people in aggregate, but pen testers and people who have to invent tooling are doing so because they see a need to either help people who are dealing with those things getting around the monotony, and it makes their job more efficient. I think automation breeds efficiency. So once you do that, then you have other things to do. But when you're automating things like PCI or SOX, is it mainly just report generation, or are we talking like database queries? I mean, what kind of things in terms of that can we hope to look at in an organization to automate? Is it just all report generation, or is there actually real legit things that you can do, security checks for PCI, et cetera? What kind of things do you suggest a company do?
Yeah, there's a lot of it's a combination. So when you look at your security requirements from a compliance standpoint, you can have technical requirements, operational requirements, management requirements. That's typically how it boils down to. So your management requirements are going to be a lot of reporting. Your operational requirements are going to be a combination of reporting and maybe even some technical controls from an operations standpoint, patching or what have you. So I'm going to actually be give you some specifics on that as far as automation. So certain areas of automation, and sometimes I look at it from a security domain standpoint as well. You're going to automate. You can automate your user access reviews. Those types of things can be automated. So most of your compliance standards require you to review user access. If you have a small environment, if you only have 10 users, it's very easy to go in. These are the users. They're doing this is they should have access to these elements. We're done. But if you have larger environments where your organizations have 9,500 or more users, it's not as simple. And then of course you multiply that on whatever applications you have. And even getting back to what Shannon was talking about, some folks have IAM solutions and some of them don't. So your identity and access management is all over the place. You don't want to forget that your SaaS tool bag as well, if it's not incorporated into some IAM solution or identity and access management. Depends on who we're talking to. I want to make sure I spell out acronyms. Right. But yeah. So you can automate some of those things, and that could produce reports from that standpoint. There are certain things like when you have from PCI, you'll have file integrity monitoring. So they'll leverage tools that do it. Tripwire does a few other tools do it. You can even as Brian was saying, I guess are you both Brian?
Yeah, you get used to it after a while. Yeah.
So I can say Brian said, you don't know which. Like I can say Brian said, and I can talk about both of you, right? But
that's efficient. You don't even know which one.
It's way efficient. Yeah.
But yeah, so you can sort of have those areas of automation. where it's from a technical standpoint, and I guess we're talking about PCI with file integrity monitoring. So you have those, or as Brian was saying, you can script something, and you can script your own file integrity monitoring. So we have people that do it as well. You can do that for you, right? So it's those automated checks. So it's whether it's doing something preventative or detective, depending on the control that you're using. You want to make sure that if it's preventing it, if the control is telling you to prevent something, that you prevent it. If it's telling you to detect an alert, then you detect an alert. So we always make sure that you walk people through that and make them understand you can detect something, but if it's just going into your system logs, then and it's not alerting anyone, then I'm not really sure your benefit there if nobody's until people go back and check it. So always ask, like, are you alerting? Are you alerting through some mechanism, whether it's SMS or email or phone calls, whatever, however you're doing, how are you alerting, or are you alerting to a dashboard, right? So there's a lot of different things. Is somebody watching said dashboard that you're alerting to? So that can happen within some of your auditing controls. So your automated controls, your change management controls, some of those can be automated. If you do like some of your underlining controls, like if you do your role-based access or attribute-based access type of controls, those, when you start putting those in, then you can sort of automate that requirement on least privilege principle and separation of duties. So it gets into that as well. So I'm a chatty person, but I know Shannon has lots to say on this one too. And we're not going to talk to you all night, but
that's all right. Well, go ahead, Shannon. Yeah, go ahead, Shannon. What thoughts do you have there, especially on the IAM side?
Oh, the IAMs. I have all day long. I have a client right now that they have 27 applications that are in scope for their Sarbanes-Oxley. We have to do a user access review for every single one of them. Every single one of them. Not all of them are centralized by, say, like a tool like Okta. They are SaaS solutions. They're on-prem solutions. So not everything's controlled by Active Directory or as such, right? So it is a nightmare. We have to pull a list from every single system, and then we have to review and make sure no one's on there that shouldn't be, and then verify that everyone has the appropriate access. What's the biggest nightmare for us is not finishing the reviews, but the auditors and trying to explain to them what we did for the review. Because every time it's manual, we have to prove to them that we have all of the details and everything was complete and we didn't miss something. And we have to evidence every single step. Whereas if there was a way to automate it using a tool, a script gets complicated with auditors because sometimes they don't really understand the script unless they know how to write them themselves.
Right.
But for the most part, it gets complicated. So if you have a tool or something that's able to turn things on and off or help you do a review because it's pulling all the information in and somewhere streamlining and automating it, it's a little bit easier. Because at the end of the day, I have to get the auditors to get us to pass. If they don't understand it, they don't pass you. And so, which means hours upon hours upon hours of reviewing it. And when you have 27 systems in scope, think of this, every one of those systems is an hour review for user access review. Every one of them. That's
okay. So what kind
of a lot of time.
What kind of tools do auditors trust that, this report got spit out by tool X and it says it's good. All right, you passed.
So some auditors trust tools that they're familiar with. And then other ones, you spend time during that audit period explaining to them how the tool works, because it's to the benefit of everyone involved. So they want to make sure that they can understand, and I've seen this firsthand working with auditors, is we'll come in and they want to see sources, inputs, where's the information's coming in, any type of policy configurations or what have you, to see if the checks align with the regulation. And once they understand that, and then they'll see the output. Sometimes they may just do like a spot check in other areas just to do their due diligence. For instance, audits such as PCI, your PCI auditor, their certification is online if they mess that one up. So it's not just like, oh, you signed off on it as an organization. It's no, you are liable, and your entire company is liable because your company went through the process to say that they did the correct due diligence. So those types of things may align with a little bit more scrutiny. But so what types of tools do they trust? You'll, if you Google something and it pops up, they've probably seen it before, so they may trust those. They're going to trust when they're doing searches through or queries in Jira. They're going to trust that, and they're going to ask you how Jira is going to work, just because they've seen that often. You have some of the tools that come out with that they're automating your identity and access management, your reviews, but they're going to make sure. A lot of tools, they have to be properly configured anyway. So part of that audit is verifying that configuration. So I've done those things as an advisor. Unfortunately, you'll have I've had clients work with they'll have managed services and working with their managed service providers, but their tools weren't properly configured, so they weren't getting the service that was needed. And then it was unfortunately their managed service provider didn't come back and tell them we're not getting the information. They just had an easy job because they weren't getting any alerts. So
how many times do you hear that?
All the time. You make an nightmare. An absolute nightmare. If you go in and you see that it's not configured properly and you just sit there and you're like, oh, this is going to be rough. Can we just turn the screen off now before we keep going? Like, if it's my favorite is when someone says something is single sign-on. And before I even go into the meeting, I go to the team, I go, is this real single sign-on or is it fake? And everyone goes, what do you mean? I go, is this a real single sign-on or is it a fake one? I go, are you giving me to say it's Okta? Are you giving me a tile that I can click on that if I'm not technical, I don't understand the fact that I can go into a web browser and log in and still access and change my password outside of all of the password controls?
Yeah.
Or is it a real one that if I go to the web browser, it's just going to kick me back to my Okta single sign-on or my GCP single sign-on or my Microsoft or any of them, right? And then that's when they go, how did you know that? And I was like, that's what I'm paid to do. I'm paid to find out what you're going to show to the auditors so that I can make sure that we don't show them something wrong, so that all of a sudden they're going to say, all right, now give me a list that shows everyone that has single sign-on configured. And we have to prove it. It's not like they're stupid. They have a check the box activity a lot of times, but they know what to ask for and they're getting better at it. They may not understand what they're looking at, but they know how to ask the right question to get to where they need to be, because someone above them is going to tell them that they did something wrong.
All right. So, Mr. Betcher, tell us a little bit about how people can find you and what you do with LogMD.
What do I do with LogMD? Well, I wrote a program that helps you figure out how to do Windows logging better. I'm sure there's some compliance requirements around that, right? To record the stuff and the things, right. And it also helps you with proving, like for example, if you get ransomware, HIPAA says that unless you can prove that you didn't lose any data, then that's a breach. Right. So it helps you to do those things, right? So that will put you in a better position when it comes to compliance. And so that's my tool, along with Michael Goff. And we are the purveyors of LogMD, and you can find it at log-md.com.
Excellent. All right. And of course, everybody's been seeing your Twitter handle going across the screen on Twitter or on Twitch. So you're Betcherpwned, BOETTCHERPWNED. Miss Berlin, who will be back hopefully next weekend. I'd like to do a show with her next weekend, even though we'll probably use this as a 1 and a 2-parter, just to get her into the Twitch and to introduce her to the world. You can find her at InfoSystir, INFOSYSTIR. You can follow the podcast at Breaksec, BRAKESEC, and I am on Twitter at Brian Brake, BRYANBRAKE. Just for everybody who's listening to the audio podcast, if you've come this far, thank you, because this is usually where everybody probably shuts off on the audio podcast, because we tend to, introduce ourselves or go out. The Twitch stream is going to be around for the foreseeable future, and we're going to do a lot of events on it. I have a mentee His name is AJ. He is working as a paramedic EMT in the Chicago area and is looking to take his master's degree when he gets out in December of this year and pivot into InfoSec. And he has asked me, and I found him through the Black Girls Hack Slack, which is one of the organizations that our umbrella corporation, the InfoSec Education Foundation, has set up scholarships to help people get vouchers for Security Plus certifications and help to get to conferences so that everybody can be exposed to InfoSec. Everybody should be able to be exposed to InfoSec if they so choose. So AJ and myself are going to have some regular vignettes here on the Twitch, going through Try Hack Me. We're going to go through some of the Burp Suite Academy stuff. One of our content creators, Wimmery, is already doing some of those on her own channel. If you go to twitch.tv/Wimmery, WHIMMERY. You can go and check out what she's been doing over there. She also does some gaming, like most Twitch folk, but she also does Burp Suite Academy stuff. And so we're going to go through some Try Hack Me. We're gonna get some skills. We're gonna up skills. So if you are interested in doing some Try Hack Me or Pen Tester Labs or Vuln Hub or anything, if you have an idea on things that we can do on here, CTFs, over the wire, under the wire stuff, if you want to do those old school war games, if you just want to sit around and do regex golf like what Mr. Betcher showed me, alf.nu, I think is alf.nu, which is regex golf. It's infuriating. I will tell you right now, it is awful. But you will learn how to do regexes pretty easily with that by the time you're done. So, but if you have ideas on what we can do and spend a couple hours every week doing it, my next month of March is going to be doing at least an hour a day of content, whether it be me reading the news and talking about various facets of things, or going through the attack, defend, and I think MITRE just came out with a new framework called Engage. So if you are interested in, discussing some of that, consider this to be an educational font of the place to be. If you're looking to upscale or you're just looking to hang out and talk about all things security, we would definitely love to do that. So tell your friends, because we want to grow the community and to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to get involved. We're looking to expand our relationship with Black Girls Hack, if at all possible, and with other groups that are InfoSec related or security related, or DevOps and programming and PM related. So we're definitely pushing. We're definitely pushing an education agenda here, which seems to be in short supply on Twitch. A lot of it is, talking about gaming and esports. There's really not a lot here going on with education-wise for security. So we're definitely very niche, but we hope to have some fun doing it too. So tell your friends, push us out on all your social media platforms. Listen to the podcast. Tell your people about the podcast. Upvote us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, elsewhere, and LinkedIn, because we sometimes neglect LinkedIn. But we really appreciate the help, and we just hit affiliate status because of yesterday's Sunflower Con, which I don't know is how big a deal that is. I actually have to read more into it. But it sounds like we'll be somewhat self-sustaining with all of the revenue that we get from this. So do appreciate everybody for helping out with that. We do thank our Patreon donors, the tip jar that you see on the crawl. If you go to breaksec.com/BDS Patreon, you can help donate some money to the tip jar, which will go to just maintenance and upkeep, the Zoom we use, domain hosting, libsyn for distribution, and helping out just time and effort of me and Mr. Betcher and Ms. Berlin and all of our moderators in our Slack, making community work and making everything work. So hope you'll find time to make some love there, either by educating and communicating us to your friends and colleagues, or giving us a little something in the tip jar. So appreciate everybody for doing that. I think that's it for our show this week and our first official Twitch for the Breaking Down Security podcast. I'm Brian Brake, Mr. Betcher, Shannon Noonan, Stacey Cameron. Stacey and Shannon, thank you again so much for coming. It was awesome to have y'all on, and And yeah, we'll have to do this again very soon. So
Absolutely. Thanks.
cool.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, everyone, have a great week. Be kind to one another. Stay safe, especially our friends in Ukraine. Everything will hopefully get better soon. And take care of yourselves, because as we're fond of saying here on the podcast, you're the only you have. And we'll talk to you again soon.